Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show, where we seek real answers to life's real problems. I'm your host, Dr. Tim Jennings, with my co-host, Lori Atkins.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Our topic today is going to be simple steps for smoking cessation. Now, Dr. Jennings, this day and age, there's so much science, so much evidence that smoking causes so many health problems for the environment, for our personal environments. Why is smoking still a problem today?
Well, smoking is actually very addictive. I'm just wanting to know, is there anybody you know that doesn't know smoking is unhealthy?
No, and there's nobody I know that smokes that doesn't want to stop smoking.
Right, so cigarette smoking causes all kinds of health problems, heart disease, lung disease. It increases ADHD in children whose mothers smoke, so women who smoke have brain development problems in their kids. Smoking is really unhealthy. Everybody knows it's unhealthy. Why do people smoke? It's addictive. There's a certain reward. There may be other potential reasons too. For instance, nicotine from the cigarette smoke can suddenly enhance certain neurotransmitters that improve a little bit your attention and focus.
Right.
So untreated ADHD kids in their adolescence who are struggling and get introduced to cigarettes may find that they focus better, they feel better. It helps them because it's turning on prefrontal cortex, and there's evidence that shows that untreated ADHD gives you an increased risk of addictions and seeing addictive substances, and so that could be a potential reason why people are still pursuing this substance.
Right. So, do you have some tips for us? What sort of suggestions would you have for people who want to stop smoking, or they want to stop dipping tobacco, or they want to stop even vaping?
Right, so there's a whole list, and they can go to our website, timjenningsmd.com, or they can find this document and they can download it and they can have it for themselves, a document with all these things on it if they'd like. Excellent. But we're going to go over some of these today. So
the first one you have is stop drinking caffeine or stop intaking caffeine. What in the world does caffeine have to do with cigarette smoking?
So, when I tell my patients this, the first thing they look at me is like, are you kidding me? I know coffee and what... So I tell them, and so anybody listening, this doesn't mean you can't have caffeine for the rest of your life.
Okay.
We're talking about during the time in which you're trying to quit tobacco or nicotine.
Gotcha.
Okay? Neurobiologically, in your brain, caffeine increases your craving for nicotine.
Interesting.
So if you notice, people who drink their cup of coffee, they want their cigarette with it. Okay?
Yes.
And so if you're trying to quit and you're in nicotine withdrawal, do you actually want to do something that increases your craving for nicotine? No. So during the time in which you're trying to quit, until you get to the point you really feel like you're free of it, then you don't want to be drinking caffeine during that time.
Gotcha.
Now, let's say you've done it, you're successful, and you've reintroduced some caffeine. It's possible you will reintroduce a nicotine craving that you haven't had in weeks. You need to be prepared for that because you're neurobiologically triggering potential cravings.
Is that because they're both stimulants?
They don't work exactly the same way, but there is an overlap in the circuitry in the brain, and they can cause this. And there's studies that show these overlap in these addictive substances. But if you're drinking caffeine, I also have to instruct you. It depends on how much you're drinking. If you're drinking 1 or 2 cups of coffee or its equivalent a day, you can pretty much go ahead and just stop. But if you're drinking substantially more, there's no danger in suddenly stopping as far as health dangers.
Right.
But there are health consequences
yes.
or impacts. Specifically, you may get severe pounding headaches because caffeine's a vasoconstrictor, and if you've been drinking a lot of it and you suddenly stop, you can get vasodilation and you get these pounding headaches.
They call those rebound
Right,
headaches.
Exactly. And significant fatigue feeling you can get, wanting to sleep more because the caffeine interferes with normal sleep, so you might find you're sleepy all the time. And so if you're drinking a lot, you might need to taper your caffeine down slowly over a week or 2 weeks.
Right, makes sense.
Before you even try to quit your tobacco. Okay, so
Gotcha.
as you're planning on your plan and strategy to get off the tobacco, one thing to do is, well, how much caffeine? How long does it take? Get off that first, and it's one thing to do.
Gotcha. Okay, what about avoiding alcohol?
Again, I have to tell people, okay, if you like a glass of wine or something, we're not talking abusive amounts of alcohol. If you've got an alcohol addiction problem, well, then you need to get in treatment for your alcohol addiction, and you do need to be an abstainer and not drink.
Yes.
We're talking now for people who don't have an alcohol addiction problem. They just maybe like a couple glasses of wine or something once in a while. But alcohol, just like the caffeine in your brain, stimulates increasing cravings for nicotine, number one. But more than that, it reduces resolve. It reduces willpower.
Yes, it lowers those inhibitions.
Exactly right. Impairs prefrontal cortex functioning. And thus, alcohol will most certainly undermine any success at trying to stop smoking or dipping. And so I instruct people again, this doesn't mean you can never have alcohol again in your life if you don't have an alcohol use problem.
Right.
Okay? But during the time in which you're trying to quit the tobacco, it is important that you don't use alcohol during that time because it will increase cravings and reduce resolve and more likely cause a relapse. And that will cause you to feel frustrated and cause you to get down on yourself and cause you to feel like, oh, why am I even bothering? I just can't succeed. You'll start developing attitudes of feeling like a failure and frustrated. And you don't want to feel those feelings, so you won't even try again in the future.
Well, and you want to give yourself every opportunity for success.
Right. So don't sabotage yourself by these substances. So these are simple things you can do that can enhance your likelihood of succeeding if you really want to quit.
Okay, so now you were talking about even making a plan, paring down your caffeine, paring down your alcohol. The next tip is to actually set a date.
Yes, and so you want to kind of overview some of these things you might do first, but then it is important to set a date. Many people, I don't know if you say you know people who say they want to quit, they don't like smoking, but they never actually set a date to do it.
Exactly.
You never actually set the date, and because they never actually set the date, they never actually take the action.
And can't hold themselves accountable.
Right, and so it's important to set a date, and when that date comes, you not only don't put a cigarette to your mouth, you actually go through your environment and you clean it all out. You get rid of all your cigarettes, you get rid of your lighters, you get rid of your ashtrays, you get rid of all your smoking paraphernalia.
Yes.
You do all of this stuff to clean it out so it's not available to you anymore.
Give yourself a no-fail environment.
Right. And this is not only doing it behaviorally, but you're putting it in action, but it's actually that internal sense of, this is my choice. I choose to do this, the commitment.
Yes.
Okay? But that date can be very helpful. This is my date to quit.
Okay.
And you do that pre-work preparation time to be successful that date.
So the next tip would be to identify those triggers associated with smoking, and I'm guessing replace those unhealthy triggers with healthy ones.
Yes, and so let's kind of give a little background on what those triggers are and why they're. Many people may not have heard of Pavlov and Pavlov's dogs, but Pavlov was a behavioral researcher who identified this process known as classic conditioning.
Okay.
And so he had these dogs and he brought them in and he fed them, and every time he fed them he would ring a little bell. Did this over and over and over again. And then he brings the dogs in and rings the bell, and there's no food anywhere. And what do the dogs do? They begin salivating. They begin getting hungry. And why? Because eating with the bell conditioned them to associate the bell with food.
Yep.
They were conditioned for that response. People who have addictions have certain habits, certain behaviors, certain patterns of their addictive behavior, and their environment and how they do the addiction condition them to crave that substance. And so people need to identify their patterns of use so they can anticipate when I do that behavior and that experience, that's going to trigger, like ringing the bell, it's going to trigger a craving for the nicotine, and I need to replace the cigarette with something else. So example, a lot of smokers smoke when they get in their car. They get in the car, hit the lighter, boom, okay? Well, so that's a trigger. And the car is going to trigger me. It's like ringing the bell. So I need to have something else. So I get in the car, instead of putting a cigarette in my mouth, I put a Tic Tac in my mouth.
Okay.
See, I've got something I've replaced it with. I anticipate
You can be
that.
prepared for that.
One couple that I know that they both in the fall going into winter. They had a habit pattern of sitting out on their front porch and smoking. That's what they love doing in the evening, sit on their front porch. But they went to a smoking cessation class. They stopped smoking during the winter. They had been smoking free. They had no nicotine for 3 or 4 months. Spring comes, they go out and sit on their porch for the first time since they quit. And they both had this terrible craving to smoke. Because they're physiological free of the nicotine, but that porch was their bell, and it triggered that craving. So identifying the triggers, and the triggers can be physical places, like getting in the car, sitting on the porch, but the triggers can be emotional triggers.
Okay.
Like every time I get angry, or I get lonely,
or tired,
or I get tired, or sometimes it's after a meal or after a shower, first thing when I get up. And so these triggers, you need to identify them and anticipate them and have something to replace them.
It can also be activities too, right? When you said to cut out alcohol, I'm thinking that's common because a lot of people, if they smoke socially, drink socially, they're in a bar, they're drinking alcohol, and it just makes sense.
Yeah, so obviously staying away from places where people are smoking.
Yes.
I mean, so going to a place where smoking is happening is not a place you want to be going.
Right.
Okay, if you're at work and you have smoke breaks and you go out on your smoke breaks to talk to all your buddies around the cigarette ashtray, wherever the smoking place is, you don't want to go there on your break, even though you don't want to smoke. Where my buddies are, you don't want to go with them anymore.
Right.
Not on the break if they're out there smoking. You have to talk with them somewhere else.
Yeah. Okay, what about joining forces, buddying up with somebody?
Yeah, so this is very helpful. If you can find somebody else who's trying to quit smoking at the same time, if your spouse smokes, it's ideal for the two of you to do it together. Then you can reinforce each other, help each other, encourage each other.
And not tempt each other.
And not tempt each other. It's really, really hard for one spouse to quit smoking while the other spouse is not trying or continues to smoke. So having a partner, a buddy, somebody that can help you through and encourage you, that you can call, because cravings, when cravings come, they come in waves. So you may have a craving, but if you resist the craving and move past it, that will fade away for a while. It'll come back, but it'll fade away. It'll come back, but it'll fade. Hunger cravings are like this too. And while you need food, you don't need nicotine. If you go long enough without eating, people who go on these long fasts, they don't get hunger cravings anymore. They even go away. So if you can get through each craving, and that's where a partner can help you, then the cravings get weaker and weaker and weaker, and they will eventually go away. We have several more tips we want to go through to help people to be successful in their battle with this nicotine and to be free of it. And so right after our break, we're going to finish up on the tips for smoking cessation.
Welcome back to the Dr. Tim Jennings Show. We are here today discussing successful steps for smoking cessation. Dr. Jennings is going over some excellent practical tips that we can use to give us a better chance of success if we want to quit smoking. Our next one is exercise. How will exercise help us to quit smoking?
So not only is exercise going to be good for the cardiovascular health, but when you exercise regularly, your brain produces endorphins and enkephalins, which actually will help reduce the cravings and their mood elevators, and will help mitigate against some of those cravings that you're having while you're trying to quit. But if you haven't had a habit of exercise, it's very critical that you talk with your doctor. You start low, you go slow, you don't go out there and overdo it and get an injury of some sort. But if you can get yourself into exercise, walking 20 minutes a day can be part of that process, and it can significantly help. It also improves circulation, which can help your body move some of the toxins out of your system.
Gotcha. So what about the right use of the imagination?
Yeah, this is a big one. This use of imagination, the wrong use of imagination, is one of the frequent barriers that trip people up who are trying to be free of an addiction, and this particular one is critical. So let's break through that. If somebody's put their cigarettes down, and they've made the decision, they've done all the things we've said so far, they've set their date, they set them down, within a few hours, they're going to start getting cravings. And if they don't know about their imagination and how to govern it, what will happen if they're not careful is those cravings will grab a hold of their imagination. They'll begin imagining, I could smell one right now. I could taste one right now. And they imagine opening one up and putting it in their mouth and lighting it. And if they do that, does that help them quit?
Not at all.
No, that only enhances. And what will happen is they will eventually go out and smoke because it's just making it stronger and stronger and stronger. So they have to use their imagination to help them and not hurt them. So I teach them, when you get that craving, I want you to imagine grabbing your flip-top box of cigarettes and you open the flip-top box and maggots come crawling out your hand. Or cockroaches come rolling out of your hand.
Oh, no.
Okay, and see, when you get that imagery, what kind of a reaction do you get?
Horrified.
See, this is the deal. This is what I'm helping people learn. Most people with addictions don't need more information.
Right.
They don't need more facts about the dangers of their addiction.
They already know.
So if they know, why won't they quit? Here's why. They've developed an emotional attachment to their addiction, what I call the warm fuzzy.
Yes.
When they think about their cigarette, their addiction, they go, oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be nice. Okay?
Yeah.
And the real victory over an addiction is not simply avoiding it. Many people are what we call dry addicts. They're not doing the substance, but every time they think about it, oh, I wish I could.
Yes.
Well, they still long for it. They still crave it. They still wish they could. They know they can't because they'll end up in the hospital or whatever.
Yep.
But they're not free. Okay?
No, because of what we know about the brain, the neuroplasticity of the brain, they're still impacting their brain.
Real freedom comes when they not only avoid the substance, but when they have a change in emotional valence so that they don't have a warm fuzzy, they get revulsion and disgust.
Right.
Imagine if I held a warm bowl of dog droppings to you
Yeah.
with a spoon. What emotional
no
reaction do you get?
attachment to that.
Not attachment. What reaction do you get?
Revulsion.
Exactly. And if you got that gut revulsion towards your addiction, you're not going to use it.
Yeah.
And so what I have to teach people to do is they have to begin changing their emotional reaction. And one way they can do that is using their imagination to associate revolting things with the substance rather than fantasizing how wonderful it is.
Right.
And the imaginary stuff like the cockroaches or the maggots, that's a stepping stone.
Yes.
As they get some distance from their addiction, when they see the addiction in its true light, in itself it is revolting and disgusting.
Right. And what it's doing to them.
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
they can see it for what it is, and it's revolting and disgusting, and their emotions will ultimately change. But in the short run, using the imagination can be very helpful.
Okay, what about drinking plenty of water, fresh juices? Does this help curb our cravings?
It may not necessarily curb the cravings directly, but it helps flush the system.
Okay.
So smoking produces a lot of oxidizing, free radical, body damaging molecules. The water and fresh fruit juices, the fruit juices have lots of antioxidants,
Right.
phytochemicals that will help remove the toxins, and the water helps flush the system. So it's about a cleansing of your system, which can give you a greater sense of feeling more energy, feeling more vibrant, not feeling as sluggish, feeling more
Right.
clear-headed. So your overall sense of health and well-being can improve from this. It may not specifically reduce the cravings when they come, though.
Right. But it could help you. You said exercise is a great curbing of cravings. So if you are feeling more energetic, detoxed, you may be more able to exercise than you were before.
That's exactly right. It's exactly right, yeah.
So what about prayer? Does prayer help?
Yes, so prayer, it's important that people reach out in prayer to their higher power. Now, what we've known about prayer science is prayer actually does have an impact on your brain and your well-being.
Okay.
But not all prayer is equally healthy. It really does depend on what you pray and how you pray. People who have prayers that are to a God of beneficence, a God of love, a compassionate God, a God who's their friend, a God who's there to help them, they actually have better well-being, better health, better long-term outcomes, better coping, even after trauma issues and problems. People who, though, have angry prayers, vengeful prayers, they don't cope and adjust as well unless in their processing with their deity over their anger and frustration, it resolves the anger and
work through
frustration,
that.
and they come to a sense of peace and grace and forgiveness. Then they have better coping and outcome. But if they're praying to an angry God who they want them to be angry and stay angry, then that doesn't actually work so well. In the context of addictions, though, it's well known that 12-step programs who include the higher power have better outcomes than those who don't. And so seeking out to get the assistance of your higher power, not to make the choice for you, made the choice, but to give you the strength to carry through the choice
Right.
is very beneficial, and people have better outcomes. So absolutely you want to pray.
And then you have the tip to clean everything. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier that when you set the date, you want to get rid of the paraphernalia and get rid of the ashtrays, but you want to clean your car, clean your curtains, clean your rug, clean your clothes, because the smell of cigarettes have gotten on everything.
It's pervasive.
And that smell of cigarettes can be a trigger. That we talk about triggers. Well, a very powerful trigger is the olfactory trigger. Think about when you get smells of certain foods. Certain foods can really trigger that more than just the sight of the food or the mention of the food. The smell of it really gets it going, okay?
Right.
And so smelling the nicotine or the remnants of the nicotine can be a very powerful primal trigger that can make the cravings even more stronger. So you want to clean everything and have things fresh and new and get rid of the smells.
Gotcha. What about avoiding mental games? Do people play mental games with themselves when they're trying to quit smoking?
Yeah, so the mental games that people most often play that I see is, you know what, yeah, smoking's bad. Yeah, smoking's no good. Yeah, I need to quit. Yeah, I really would be better off if I quit. Okay, I'm not going to have another cigarette. And then in the back of their mind, they have this little secret emergency break in the case emergency
Just in
capsule
case.
that says, unless I have a really bad day. I won't smoke again unless I get really stressed.
Right.
Unless I have an argument with my spouse. Unless my boss gets on me again.
There's always an out.
They always have these little escape clauses back there. And guess what? If you create an escape clause, you will exercise that escape clause.
And you'll bring it about those conditions.
All my patients who have relapsed, if they've had the escape clause, they've created the circumstance that they get to exercise the escape clause so they can smoke again because they really want to smoke again.
Yeah.
So you have to be serious with yourself. You know what? My life is not better. If my spouse breaks up with me, my life doesn't get better with a cigarette. If my boss fires me, my life doesn't get better with a cigarette. Cigarettes do not improve any element of my life. So no matter what happens when I decide to quit, I don't care what problems come, I'm going to deal with it without cigarettes.
Wow.
That's the mindset you have to have. No mental games.
Well, and associated with that, the next tip is to remind yourself your real reasons for quitting.
Yeah, and I tell people to make a list. Actually get a piece of paper out, use your iPhone or your smart device, make a list of your reasons. And those lists are multifactorial. Better health. Then you can list multiple health reasons.
Yeah.
Financial. Think of the money you're saving. Put down the cost that you're saving, and you can actually save a lot of money by quitting. That could be one. What about your family members? Can you? Most of us have family. Very few of us that don't.
Right.
Is there somebody you love? Do you have a child? Do you want to be there for your child's graduation? Do you want to be there for the birth of your grandchild? Do you want to be there for the graduation and marriage of your grandchild? Right. Put those down, and not only with that, put their pictures next to it. Look at their pictures of them, and that can really be motivating. You know what? I want to be there when my granddaughter graduates or gets married.
Right.
Remind yourself of the reasons for quitting.
Yes.
I want to be on a ball team. I want to. I want to be able to go out, and I want to be able to climb the stairs at the Empire State Building with my grandchild.
Right. I don't only want to be there. I want to be there and healthy.
I want to be able to go out and throw a ball or play basketball with my son.
Yeah.
So remind yourself of the reasons.
That's motivation. What about nicotine gum, nicotine patches? Can those help people that are considering quitting?
And I think we also need to include today vaping.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so you're asking, what about other nicotine delivery mechanisms? So first off, can those mechanisms help people quit cigarettes, tobacco? Yes, they can, but they're not freeing them from the addiction. They're just giving them perhaps a cleaner source of nicotine, and that's true.
Yeah.
The tobacco has hundreds of carcinogens and chemicals and toxins and inflammatory products in it, and so moving to a nicotine source that is not from tobacco is going to be healthier, but you're not free of the addiction yet.
Gotcha.
The vaping question is still an open question on whether it is ultimately healthier. It's surmised to be, because generally you're getting vapor nicotine. Many of them are putting flavors in these things now, all kinds of flavors.
And marketing it to younger and younger audiences.
And there's evidence it may actually be more addicting than the cigarettes. Is it causing just the same levels of health problems as the tobacco? The hypothesis is, what we surmise is, it's likely not, because you're not getting all of the polyhydrogen hydrocarbons, polyaromatic hydrocarbons, which are the byproducts of burning things. Whether we're burning tobacco or burning fossil fuels, when you burn things, you get these byproducts, and those are known to be carcinogens. So that you're not getting those, and then surmise, but there's no long-term studies to know.
Exactly.
So can these be a helping stepping stone? Yes, they can be a helping stepping stone, but the ultimate goal is to be completely free of the addiction over time.
Okay. And what about some of the medications that are on the market now that are supposed to help?
Yes, and there are a variety of medications. Zyban, bupropion, as Wellbutrin, that increases dopamine in the brain, and it has been shown to, in some people, can be very helpful in helping them stop smoking. Chantix is another one that's on the market, and I've had some patients where Chantix is just absolutely almost like throwing a switch for them. You put them on it and lay them right under the craving, and put the cigarettes down. Other patients, it reduced the cravings, but they still had a battle. Other patients, it didn't help at all. And then other patients, it actually made them worse. It may cause some type of psychological, emotional problem for them. So it's not a panacea that works for every person. You need to talk with your doctor about these medications. And a medication, by the way, if you decide to use one of them, that's why they're at the end of the list.
Yes.
Are only an adjunct to all the other things we've done. So you still need to want to cut out the caffeine. You still need to stop the alcohol while you're trying to quit. You still need to identify your triggers. You still need to get a buddy. You still want to do the cleansing with the juices and water. You want to exercise regularly. I didn't mention sleep. You want to get good sleep, because when you're sleep deprived, your prefrontal cortex is impaired, and you're less likely to have self-restraint, and so you're more vulnerable. So you want to get good sleep. So all the other things we're talking about people doing, you still want to do, and perhaps a medication for somebody would be helpful along that. And typically, you don't need the medicine more than 3 months for most people, 3 months of abstinence from the substance.
Right, to get you through those tough cravings.
So I want to tell you guys, if you're struggling with a nicotine addiction, there is hope. It's absolutely beatable. You don't need to give up. Be encouraged. Go to our website, timjenningsmd.com, download the file and get these tips and engage these tips. Make the choice. Be free. And we'll see you again next time on our next show.